Hello, truth seekers. Lawrence here, and welcome to Easy Enlightenment. So, here's the bitter truth about the spiritual enlightenment or spiritual freedom. And the truth is that the spiritual journey is about going into the war with yourself. Now, probably you have heard this reference, but somehow you overlooked it and moved on. Or you're still anchoring with in this reference and you're working towards it. Or maybe you have no clue about this reference, but now you know it is about going into the war with yourself. Now, going into the war means going into the war with your own ego. Spiritual journey is about death of the ego, annihilation of the ego. Annihilation of the ego means dissolving the mind, dissolving the identification with the mind to go towards a no mind. And that's the death of the ego. And that uh, is the way to see one's own true nature, which is the consciousness itself. The true blueprint of who we are is the consciousness. And the nature of the consciousness is conscious and empty. So when you trace your mind backward to go all the way to no mind, that's how we dissolve the inner conflict, dissolve the fear in us. So it's the dissolution of the ego. And to dissolve the ego, it's the war. It's the war. Because ego means becoming somebody. Ego is the mental identification. And mental identification is becoming somebody. Right now, you're somebody, isn't it? Can you accept yourself nobody? No, you can't. Your whole life has been the movement of becoming somebody, and you're refining your journey to get somewhere in life. Maybe you're there, you're in the peak experience of somebody, or somewhere you are down, but you're pushing yourself to be somebody, isn't it? You're not alone in this becoming. The whole world is becoming to be somebody. Why? Because our environment influences us to be somebody. Our culture is influencing us to be somebody. So when our whole environment is creating that movement, we are naturally in that flow. And life outside is, yes, identifying yourself with something, and you create something out of it to support yourself. But even that journey is supported by the consciousness itself. Consciousness is helping you to see the details, to and rearrange stuff to experience the peak experience. The consciousness is always there. But this is becomes a trap. This movement of becoming somebody becomes a trap. It's already a trap because of the fear. There's so much inner conflict in us. There's so much fear in us. The whole world is fear right now. Because of the fear, there's so much further chaos in the world. And the biggest chaos in the world is the war, isn't it? War is the biggest chaos, which is unnecessary. And all this chaos is there because of becoming somebody, identifying ourselves with something. That something is bigger, better, faster, and me, myself, and I. That's because of the separation that is created leads to that violence. And we are seeing that right now. In the past, right now in the present, the war is there. We are seeing it. And in the future, the war is still going to be there because of the becoming somebody, identifying ourselves with the mental layers. And the mental layer is also the past layers. So, with the result of identifying, becoming, we are already seeing, and not just in the war in the world, but let's pull back and look at ourselves. If we look into ourselves, there is so much chaos within, isn't it? Like the biggest chaos is the fear. Fear is there. And because of the fear, when we are participating in the world, there is a conflict. The conflict is there because of the difference in our preferences. And what is that preference? Is the ego. Righteousness is ego, preference is ego. Basically, righteousness, preference is an idea, and all idea is the mind, and identifying ourselves with the mind is identifying ourselves with the false or ignoring the truth of who we are. We're not seeing we're not seeing things as they are. So let's pull back and step back from the world and look at ourselves. Okay? The fear is there. And why the fear is there? Fear is there because of our environment. As I mentioned, the environment is making us to be somebody, identify ourselves with something. It's about becoming. And if you don't become somebody, then we are going against our environment. And when we go against the environment, then we assume that the fingers will be pointed towards us, that we are a rebel. A rebel. We are against them. So, not to get finger pointed at us, we just go with the world. So, because of that, we already are that. We are the environment. We are the byproduct of the environment. But there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, even after enlightenment you have to pick up something. Yeah, you have to have a simple ego, and then simple ego means you have to participate in the world with the mind. Even simple life is simple ego. But when it comes to be free from the fear, to be free from the mental and emotional stress, or to be free from the mental conflict, then we have to step back and examine ourselves to see what is real from the unreal. We have to see the real as real and not real as not real. Spiritual enlightenment is about di- di- uh, disengaging with the identification, and that journey is the war with yourself. Again, it's about dissolving the ego, and ego, which we are the already ego self. We are identified with so many things, and our ego self is threatened by this reference, and ego resists to die, because ego accepting uh, the annihilation of the ego is the death of the ego. Ego is becoming nobody, you know and ego thrives on with identification and making the kingdom out of that mental identification, and it thrives on that. And dissolving, annihilation of the ego is the freedom, but this freedom is hard to accept for the ego, and that's why the journey hasn't been started pretty much for majority of the world. Even the people who are sincere or have the willingness to be free somehow stop at some point, and stopping is not the way to be free. The complete annihilation has to be there. So notice, if you are in the spiritual journey, you identify yourself with the spiritual reference, spiritual practices, right? References and practices, and you're doing it. But you must also recognize that these reference and practices are the tools, but not the destination. Eventually, you have to give up your tools, all the tools, to get to the truth. Why? Because the truth is empty. The consciousness is conscious and empty. To take or reclaim the truth of who you are, you have to empty yourself. So, if you are stuck in the spiritual identification, by the way, spiritual identification is the highest identification, and that's what the ego doesn't want to give up. Ego is so clever that it creates the mirage illusion of letting go of a lot of stuff, but don't want to let go this the spiritual identification, and this spiritual identification is there in the spiritual people, and because of that the truth is hard to see. The truth is present in the plain sight, but it's harder to see just because of that attachment to spiritual layer. And the spiritual layers itself is a conditioning because of not knowing what true spirituality is about in the beginning. So when you are identify yourself with a spiritual path, with the with the ideas and practices, when you are repeating, hoping to get yourself free from your own mind, that repetition of the practice itself brings further mental layer and bodily conditioning, and that becomes another prison. So spirituality, uh, identification itself is the prison. So be aware of not getting there. Remember, the true spirituality is about emptying yourself, emptying yourself. Okay? So, how to empty yourself? The simple and straightforward journey is trace your mind backward, trace your identification backward, trace your attachment backward, trace your fear backward to figure out the root cause of the attachment, root cause of the fear. And once you see the root, you have to dismantle further to go to no mind. And that is the way to become a thorough of your mind, to understand the nature of the mind. And that journey also makes you see that the mind is simply the byproduct of our experience. Whatever we go through in life leaves the idea in us, and the idea is, you know, basically there in us as a memory. So you understand that, but that's not enough. You have to go further. So, how to go further is with the simple work, which is witnessing yourself, turning the awareness back to yourself, and dismantling your mind, which is dismantling or tracing your mind, your fear, your attachment backward, and asking yourself, who am I? That's the whole approach to be free from your mind, to dissolve the fear, or to enlighten yourself, or to awaken to the truth of who you are. Okay, that simple step is enough. Enough. The only difficult part to see the truth is to to annihilate the ego. That's the hardest challenging part. And that's why I'm saying that spiritual enlightenment or spiritual freedom is about going into the war with yourself. With yourself means with your own ego. Right now, when your truth is missing, you are identifying yourself with the mind, and the real journey is about letting go of the mind, letting go of the identification. And that's where the conflict starts. That's where the fear starts to resurface. And if you see this, you can work directly with by examining the fear to figure out why the fear is there in the first place. Figure out the root of the fear and dismantle the root with the same approach, which is tracing the fear backward until nothing is left. That's it. Okay, that's it. So that's the journey. Anyway, I hope this video makes sense to you. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Take care for now.